Welcome to Dynamics of Dialogue, your one-stop shop for peace and love on the airwaves, a safe space for people of color and our allies. Join us every week as we have real dialogue with people going through real life. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some. Hey everybody, today is September. Look, the year's gone by so quickly, right? This is October 21st. We are talking about the pleasure principle today, right? So originally today we were going to do a demonstration. You'll notice that our other regular guest, Kisha Weidman-Smith, is not here today. She's not feeling well, but we're going to have this conversation and we're going to take it in the direction we wanted to go because we think it's still very, very important to understand some of the dynamics. So I know for me, I wanted to highlight the importance of, I think there is an importance of pleasing your partner. So in the context of a relationship. So who I have with me here today is Maad Queen of Maad Queen Media.
Hello.
You can say yeah. And then we've got Kisha Perry from Beautiful One Sisters.
Good morning, everyone.
Yay. Okay. So I just really want to really take some time and have an open, candid conversation with you ladies about your ideas. So I'm just going to go ahead and dig right in. Is that right?
Sounds good.
Of course. That's why we're here.
Okay. So first and foremost is this idea of, to put it in context, when you consider people that, everybody has their own things that they like, right? Their sexual desires. Everybody wants to be pleased. Yeah. And some of those come from a really healthy place. Some of those don't necessarily come from a really healthy place. Right. Right. And then when you have a relationship, somewhere you have to contain that. You somehow it has to be contained. Now, some of us have unhealthy desires for reasons that, it may not be something that you can just say, okay, I can just get rid of. Somebody, I want to think of an example. Give me an example of something that people would, I don't know, somebody would say is unhealthy.
Sexually unhealthy?
Yeah.
Threesomes.
Yeah,
that's unhealthy.
So say for example, somebody, they had experiences, a sexual experience that could have been traumatic for them. Right. But oftentimes people develop the characteristics that go along with the traumatic experience. It becomes a part of them, almost like a coping mechanism. And it becomes a part. I don't want to say their identity. I'm not a psychologist, so y'all understand. I'm only talking as a person with experience in certain areas and a lot of opinions and a lot of reading and just exploring the subject. But say for example, you have that person and this may be something that they just really, really want. And within the course of a relationship, maybe a partner, a lot of people are not really open to that.
Right. For it.
So you have to have, how do you create an intersection between the things that you have to have and then, while still establishing healthy boundaries for your partner. Like for me, threesomes are a challenge. I'm not really, I haven't done it. I don't really think that that's something I want to do to accommodate
I think communication is a major thing. Like you have to be open and honest with your partner. You know what I mean? I think you just have to talk it out. If you're not comfortable with it, you got to let them know. And I don't know, books, I don't know how that partner would get you there, but I think communication is the key. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think communication, I don't know that communication would change something like that for me still.
Yeah.
So the core of it is knowing what you want as an individual to be able to communicate that.
Yes.
So yes, of course, communication, but you got to be able to say, this is what I want and this is what I want.
Right, I think it's okay to say no.
You better say no.
Yeah, it's okay to say no.
Because you're not going to be happy at the end of it.
Exactly.
Say no.
So now consider this, right? So think about, like, I know I've ranted a lot about being in relationships and guys tipping out. I've ranted a lot about being approached by a lot of married men. And I'm like, what is, I used to think at one point, I thought I'm a married man magnet.
Wow.
I thought that I was just a married man magnet. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
They
like,
were
what,
just coming to you.
You know, like out of the blue. Like,
wow.
what, you know? But what I find is that it seems as though these men are in these positions. It just keeps happening over and over again. So after a while, I start, you know, I kind of want to understand why. These men are in positions where there are things about them that they are not comfortable with sharing with their spouses. And I can think of a couple of examples. I know one guy, and these are people that I knew. I mean, these are not just like strangers on the street.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. These are people that I actually knew in life, and, you know, we've hung out, been friends, and all of a sudden one day, oh, yeah, I just been wanting to do this to you. Like, what? You know, where did that come from?
Wow.
Yeah, like, I've hung out with y'all. Like,
and you're friends with the wife?
Yeah,
like, everybody?
Yeah. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, what, you know, what is that? I don't know, you know, but, you know, you find out that I know lots of men that I've dated. I've discovered that they've confided in me that they've been sexually abused. You know, so they may have, some of them have expressed a desire for anal play. Another thing I can talk about, at least from my end of the spectrum, is that people that have been exposed to sexual trauma, particularly at early ages, lots of times it creates hypersexuality. That becomes a side effect of that.
Right.
And for me, it didn't hit until late in life. It didn't hit until late in life.
Yeah.
But so now you have this person, and so within, and it's, again, it's almost like surreal, right? That I'm even talking about it now, because I recognize this is a podcast and lots of people are going to hear this. But at the end of the day, there's a purpose in having this discussion.
Exactly.
Right? Because there are people that, how do you contain that? How? Because there is a shame that goes along with being.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And I know I felt it as a woman.
It's heavier on us.
It's heavier on us.
We have a certain
We're not
idea to maintain. We have to have this image that we have to maintain. And we
Exactly.
can't do what the boys do because, you know, we're the mothers here. We're the matriarchs. So we can't be out here being all hypersexual. And a lot of the shame, it's hard to deal with the shame when it's reinforced by other women.
Right.
So we hold ourselves to certain standards as women that we probably shouldn't.
Exactly.
You know, when you find out that people in your family may have suffered from hypersexuality, but they kept it from you.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to live your life according to this lifestyle that they set up that they weren't even living by.
That's good.
And they handled it in just different ways.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and it's a thing, you know, I often look at the anti-slut shaming movement. Like, I have mixed feelings about it. Because on one hand, I don't like that label. I wouldn't want to carry it. And I get it, you know, the same way we've taken the N-word.
Right.
But I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like I need to embrace that.
Exactly.
In order to find peace and comfort with what I'm dealing with now.
Right.
But I look at somebody like Amber Rose. You know, lots of people talk about her in a lot of ways, but I think you can look at women. I think you can kind of tell certain women. I don't know her story. I don't know her personally, but I think when you have women that have, when I see that level of hypersexuality and that openly exposed, that tells me that they've been exposed at a very early age. They're probably, and they're that comfortable with it because they've had to be. Right?
Wow.
It's a part of being okay. If you're a person that's been through that kind of sexual trauma, and you were introduced to these things, and this is what you believe sex is.
Right. That's all you know.
You've got, how are you going to be comfortable with yourself? And I just want to ask you guys, I don't know, you know, I don't know how comfortable you are with sharing your personal experiences, but I want to know, do you have experiences with that? And, you know, how did you feel about dealing with your sexuality? Because I want to still put that under the lens of how do these people with this kind of problem manage that inside a relationship, and where do you draw the line between yourself and your mate?
Go ahead.
I can speak. For me, I've always struggled with defining sexuality because I was told it was so many different things. I can think back to maybe when I was a child. I remember having the sexual thoughts. I can't think back that far, but as I got older, I would do things. Of course, we weren't talking about this stuff.
Right.
There's no conversations whatsoever between mother, grandmother, none of that. So I'm looking at Cosmo magazine. I'm looking at all these other ways to get information about sex. Not really sure why I was so interested in it.
Yeah.
I still can't tell you that, but I know that I was always looking for more information. Always looking for more information, but it wasn't readily available. So the information that I was getting was either from a rapper or from a magazine, but not a reputable source to give me.
Or trusted source.
Trusted source. I'm not going to say reputable. Yeah, trusted source to where I could take that as a frame of reference.
Yeah.
So as I got older, I found myself suppressing my sexuality because people that I was dating couldn't really understand some of the conversations I was having. It was a little too advanced. So I would find myself dating older guys. So I was 18. My boyfriend was like 25. Mother hated him for a little bit. But I always found myself dating older guys because they kind of understood.
Yeah.
I'll deal with younger guys. They didn't really understand. And that was where the labeling came from. And a lot of times we label people based off of our personal definitions of sexual behavior. So, for example, I was 12 years old. That was the first time I got called a hoe. I was 12 years old. I got called a hoe because I kissed my boyfriend in front of people.
By an adult called a hoe?
No.
Oh, by kids.
But who taught them that label?
Right.
You know what I mean? Somebody at some point.
And let's just look at that. At 12 years old, is that not age appropriate?
This whole labeling.
Right.
But is that not age appropriate? Like exploration? Like a kiss?
Right.
It's a kiss. Like, it's not like we had sex in the parking lot.
It's just a kiss.
Wow.
Nothing like that. But that's because the standards of sexual acceptance were different
Yes.
at the time. The people who saw it were like, oh my goodness, she kissed 2 people.
She's a hoe.
She's a
Wow.
hoe. So now you get this labeling. So now you tell somebody when they're 12, 13, 14, they're a hoe. How far does that carry out?
And that becomes now your belief, right? All of these things. Because ultimately, I think a lot of the way that we feel about ourselves don't really come as kids. We talk about kids that are strong-willed and call them bad, but they're just being who they are.
That's who they are.
And they don't get negative ideas about themselves until they grow up and start to get these ideas from other people. It's what they're told. That's that inner voice. That's where your inner voice really comes from, right? A lot of people telling you stuff. How many people have that? Right? Does your inner voice tell you positive things about yourself?
You really check it. If not, you have to really get in check.
I think it now it does. Back then it didn't. You know what I mean? But it had to be a mind thing where you make it tell yourself positive things. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes all that negativity, you be like, no, you got to cut that off. You got to shut it up. Yeah.
Right. You gotta shut it up.
Yeah.
You got, so it's a process that you have to go through.
Exactly.
So within that, within the context of this conversation, how do you manage your identity, your sexual identity, when you are marginalized for being a particular way? You don't feel like it's okay. And this is just us talking. I know there's the term cisgender, and I know you're straight women, and so I really don't understand that. I know that woman definitely means a lot more than just a heterosexual woman nowadays. But bearing into mind, if it is this difficult for us as heterosexual women, it makes me.
What are the others going through?
Right. It makes me compassionate towards what a transgender woman would go through, and the many variations. Because to me, in my mind, I mean, if you understand, just basic science backs up the fact that this feminine power is more powerful, right? It takes, what is it? That's the X chromosome. That's the woman. And you have to have a Y chromosome in order to make a boy. So there's always more X's than Y's. Right. And it takes the Y to make a boy. So it makes sense to me where you have this gender range, this fluidity. That makes sense to me in a lot of ways. And so, it's this whole conversation is about finding ways to be okay with that. So Kisha, can you think of some ways that, I mean, I don't know what was your sexuality like as you were becoming?
Yeah, I can remember as a young child, my mother was sexually assaulted as a child. So she was very, 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 very protective of me and my sister. You know what I'm saying? Like, we couldn't sleep over people's houses, family or no family. Like, but then on the other note, she was very, very vocal about, you know, sex. Like, I didn't have to get anything from books. Like, all my friends, everybody came to my mom to talk about it. Like, she told us what orgasms was, and, you know, oral sex, and just anything. We could go to her with any questions about sex. So I never had, you know, when I became a teenager, my friends thought I was really old because I didn't give up my virginity until I was 16. And they was like, "Oh, you're so old." And I was like, "Oh, am I?" You know, I didn't know. You know, so I was considered the nerd where my other friends were kind of considered the hoe. You know what I'm saying? Because if you had sex when you were younger, people was, "Oh, she a hoe." You know, on the playground, everybody calling that person a hoe. And I didn't even know what a hoe was. So, you know, it just was like, okay. So as far as going into adulthood, I always knew what I wanted, how I wanted, and I just spoke on it. Because I think that came from learning about sex and, you know, at a younger age and what it was all about. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you look at some of the mystery out.
Exactly. Exactly.
You don't have girls going asking the wrong people.
Right. And I even remember raising my children. I was very vocal. You know, when I got with my second husband, he was like, "Gosh, you talk to them about everything." I'm like, "You have to."
And that's good. See, so what you did is you modeled what your mom did.
Exactly.
Because I remember you being a protective mom. And so, yeah, so it sounds to me like your mom she had to deal with it.
Right.
Because in order for her to be that kind of mom and still be able to talk
about it, right,
that means that she had to deal and come to terms somehow.
Yeah.
With because it does
but create. A lot of times what'll happen is a mother is sexually assaulted. They never talk about it. They never tell their children about it. And then what happens is that child. So it's kind of like a generational curse. It just goes from generation to generation to generation to generation.
And to speak to that, although, because I'm sorry, I hate to call it a curse, because a curse is something that you don't have control over. This is something that we do.
Right.
And the reason why it goes from generation to generation is because it happens and we don't do anything.
And we don't talk about it. We don't treat it.
You don't treat it. You sitting there having Thanksgiving dinner with your rapist every day.
Exactly.
And it's normal.
And this is what we normalize for our young men and our young women.
Right.
Get over it, heal from it.
And don't talk about it.
Don't talk about it.
Don't say nothing to nobody about it.
Don't say anything to anybody about it. So now we have situations where you've got men and women, right? I include the men because I can't.
Are being raped every day. Boys.
I can't get this out of my mind.
Yeah.
How many of my male friends
Boys
and how many men I have dated, and then and it makes me, and I know it. You know, it really puts another lens on this for me, because it's like, well, at the end of the day, when you understand. As much as I hate to say it, I despise what R. Kelly is doing. That is a deviant person, and you're not born that sexually deviant. That kind of deviance is created. I have no idea what this man was exposed to.
Exactly. To have that type of deviance.
To have this level of deviance. And I mean, he's got
but
that.
You know, he was exposed to a lot.
A lot.
He did say he was.
A lot.
Did he? I never
song,
knew
he just had that song. It was like 19 minutes long.
I didn't listen.
What was it?
Because
I confess, or I admitted.
Because he classified, we had the conversation about that, because he classified himself, really, it's like he sees himself as the victim. And in his mind, he is. Because he doesn't have an understanding. In his mind, he thinks this is the way it's supposed to be. Right?
This is his normal.
This is his normal. So now we get to a place where, you know, I understand there's these things happening, but now what do we do? Right. So, and I think that it just starts with something as simple as how we're interacting within our relationships. So if I'm dating somebody, and I've had requests, and I brought it up last week, right? I've had requests actually from men that want anal play. You know, they have been violated as young children in that way. And you know, they don't want to be with men. They want to be with women, but they want that incorporated. And so, but a lot of women don't want to do that,
right?
Because it makes them see the man as less masculine.
Well, we don't understand our men.
We don't understand
our men. If we accept that they're going through this level of trauma, and we know that we have men who cannot control their dicks, first thing we want to do is label them cheaters and all this other thing. But if you actually talk to this person as a friend and have that conversation, you might actually see where that came from.
Wow.
Right. So
it's not your job to fix it.
No.
But it puts you at a place of understanding.
It puts you, but see, it's a challenging thing because I think, you know, what is the CDC? I think I know I felt like a broken record, right? 1 in 3 women have been the victims of sexual assault. And that's reported.
Reported, exactly.
And we know everybody's
a lot.
I didn't report any of mine.
Right.
I didn't report anything.
Wow.
Mine actually weren't reported either.
Oh, wow. So 3 of us and 2 have not reported. Wow.
Yeah. And that's not even to say, what if I would have? How far would it have gone?
Well, one actually, and see, here's the challenge. Now, oh boy, that's another show. I'm gonna tell my story, and I'm gonna do it on another show. But for me, it lasted over a span of years, and it was multiple people at different.
Are we talking childhood or adulthood?
From childhood, the last incident was in adulthood.
Oh, wow.
And I don't even include that, and I don't know why. I do know why. It's because it's almost like a real an acceptance that is this what life really is, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a part of that thing. But one was actually reported, and nothing ever came out of it. Nothing. But
wow.
Let's leave and talk about the fact that you didn't realize it was an assault till like maybe 3 years later.
Oh, well, I
don't
knew,
even know. You know?
yeah, well, that, I mean.
In your situation, yes. You know, in mine, I didn't.
Right. You know, but so now here we have, like, for me, so a big part of my struggle. So imagine me, God, every time I say this, I can't.
Question real quick? I'm sorry. But when you said it wasn't reported, but did you tell someone? Was an adult told?
My father, yes.
Oh.
And we went down to the police station. Yeah. And nothing ever happened after that. Nothing ever happened. No one ever got me help. And I'll talk about it more, but for me, I had been.
That saddens me.
I have been touched.
It's not supposed to go like that.
I have been touched, actually, so if I include the adult, assaulted by 4 men and 2 women in my life between the ages of 6 and probably 30. I'm just going to pause for a minute because
take a minute.
When I say that, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
You know, it's heavy when I actually speak it out loud. That is a challenge to speak out loud.
Now, can I ask you, how were you with your son? How were you a protective mom? Were you? Did you speak to him about?
I was a protective mom. I was a protective mom. It took me a while to actually tell him what happened because as a younger teen, he was very protective, and it's very difficult for him to process certain things. You know, when he hears. But I was very protective. But then again, that's a whole nother story. I know that there. I know that one time there was one child when he was very small that tried to approach him that way. And he did tell me. So that was, a good thing because I had the conversation about your safe spaces. This is your private zone and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but still for me, after having that many experiences, and I don't say this, to expose myself and people, oh, she's a freak, First Negro pop up in my inbox, you going on blast.
We're coming for you.
I'm coming. You're just gonna go on blast. That's all. Because that's not what this is for.
Right.
But within it does create a challenge for me that within my relationships, I now have to find a way. How do I accept those things that are normalized for me? Right? Because my normal. It's not like everybody's normal ain't the same. Right. So I have to accept part of that is, creating the line between what's healthy, what's not healthy, and even some of those things that may be considered unhealthy. How do I incorporate that into the safety of a relationship? How do I get my needs met, my desires met without violating my partner's boundaries. And I agree, it has a lot to do with conversation. But one conversation I had with a friend of mine, I think it starts with creating safe spaces.
Right.
And I think that we're not, to speak to what you said, we're not responsible for fixing it. But I think that it is time for us in our relationships, in order to have more meaningful intimacy, we have to create safe spaces so that we can have these conversations. Because I think I just can't. How else can you address the way there's married? I almost, like we just had a conversation the other day. I almost kind of want to be married, but I know a lot of married guys that cheat. And again, it's not the woman's fault. It's them searching for a need.
Right.
And I guarantee you that the majority of the time they're not telling their wives. And I having these conversations, still not even saying it's her fault.
Right.
Because she can't have a conversation with him
Right.
if he doesn't ever, in his mind, think that he can even
verbalize it.
A lot of it is asking the right questions, though. So you ask your partner the right questions. Because a lot of times we'll ask questions that we're looking for yes or no answers to, instead of giving them the opportunity to explain or explore. Because sometimes they really don't know why they like what they like. They just know they like it and they got to have it. So, for example, with me, I asked, trying to think of how I worded this question. I asked something to the effect of, when is the last time you had a threesome? Instead of
last time,
do you want to have one?
Or do you even
because
like them?
I
have
know,
you had one?
Yeah, have you had one? Those are all yes or no questions.
Right.
So if your answer is I never did it, if your answer is I never did it,
right,
now we can talk.
Right.
Do you want to? You know what I mean? Or no, I would never do something like that. We don't need to talk about it anymore.
Right.
I know where you stand.
But see, and again, I think sometimes now, just to play the devil's advocate, well, no, I was going to say maybe they might say I would never want to do that because they're thinking, lots of times men will answer you with what they think you want to hear.
They will answer with, despite how many times you beg for the honesty, they don't believe you want them to be honest. So they're going to still give you the best version of the response.
And there's validity in that, right? Because we have to be able to accept
exactly. When they say it, we got to take it and bite it and roll.
But part of that is that when we ask for honesty, but we're not asking for cruelty.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So if somebody says, oh babe, these jeans look, tight on me, or they too, we don't want, bitch, you look fat. We want,
put on something else.
You might want to, put change. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Honesty. We're not talking about being cruel, right? Without that. And we talked about that last week too. So again, there's conversation, there's creating safe spaces. But again, I think, how do we do that, right? In a culture where how we don't communicate and talk on a deeper level. We have, like, women get together and bond and have these conversations. That's what this whole platform is about, right?
Exactly.
These because people may not be having these conversations on the airwaves, but we do it all the time.
Right.
Behind
They're being had. You're absolutely right.
They're being had because that's how we learn. We
exactly.
And men do the same thing. And in the barbershop, they have these conversations,
but they don't have it with each other.
Right. And we're not having these. So, and in my mind, I'm thinking, sexual intimacy, because it's such a ramp, it's such a numbing thing. I just read an article. It's called The Voiceful. There's a blog. I'm going to tell everybody to go out there.
The Voiceful?
The Voiceful, and check this blog out. I don't know the name of the sister who started this blog, but there's an article that she wrote. She just posted a couple of days ago, and it is titled, "The Dick Was Not That Big, but It Was Monstrous." Murderous. Murderous.
Okay.
And it described her sexual encounter she had with a guy. I can't listen. I don't want to go into it in full detail because I wanted you guys to read it. I posted it in the Hangout. I wanted you all to read it. But at the end of the day, it really captures what many women describe as sexual experiences. It's very non-intimate. A lot of pounding and slamming. mechanical.
Yeah.
Functional.
There's no functional.
No connection.
No connection. And we've had conversations
Oh,
about.
I'm a master at that kind of sex.
Really?
I'm a master. I will block you all the way out.
And talk
if I need to.
Talk a little bit about that.
I didn't realize I did it until I actually started having sex again with somebody I cared about. And I noticed I was able to block this person out completely because of my trauma.
Okay.
And the thing is, most of the times that I was sexually assaulted was by someone I trusted every time.
Yeah.
And I spoke to you a little bit about this, but that a lot of that dissociation comes from me feeling like I need to leave my body in the event that you will eventually harm me.
Yeah.
So everyone who did it was someone I was having consensual sex with.
Yeah.
So it was just one time the consensual sex changed.
Wow.
So that put a lot of trust up for me. So instead of finding a way to heal from the trauma, I just block out the next person so that they don't hurt me that way.
Wow.
And that's how I got used to having sex. And so when I was single and I had my last breakup, I had just had my baby. I was like, I don't want to be bothered with any of you people. I just want to be by myself in my house with my baby. I don't want nobody else. But I do need dick and conversation. I need that. So I would have my bills paid. I would have my car taken care of. I would have everything ordered, going to work, taking her to the sitter. And I would just get home and like, I just want dick and conversation. So I would always have someone, a person, for dick and conversation.
Right.
Now, I wouldn't necessarily, of course I cared about the person as a human, but they were pretty much like a human vibrator. They were just in the house, like you can come over here whenever you want. You know,
Wow.
I'll cook. Are you hungry? But nonetheless, at the end of the day, dick and conversation. And when you're done, I'll call you an Uber. And that's how I was able to get through the last few years of my life until I tried to connect with someone.
Wow.
So I just want to, before we even go any deeper into that, I just want to highlight, because I want to make sure if there's any men listening to this podcast, I want them to understand, I am certain that there are men that are complaining about women that do just like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understand that there is a genesis to that.
I wasn't always like this. I tried to care. I swear I did.
And so, you know, it's part of the reason why we really do need to, you know, as much as we kind of, I don't read nothing. You really do need to kind of educate yourself.
Right.
Yeah, we're telling you what's wrong, guys. What do you mean women are complicated? We're not.
Right.
We're talking to
it's
you.
not that complicated, and really, it's the same thing, right? This is behavior, and is this isn't gender specific stuff,
Right.
You know, except of the expectations that our culture, not just, you know, America, our society puts on people. So men have it and they disconnect too.
Yeah.
So think about how many men that you've dated that you looking for a connection and you can't get that from him. He can't give it to you because he's dealt with that. So this is what I mean. It's when I talk about sex is really designed to bring two people together.
Exactly.
Chemically, there is a chemical that is produced in your body called oxytocin, right? And that chemical binds you with the person. It makes you, it connects you emotionally with the person. So, and we're managing ways to engage in sex for sport and recreation.
Yeah.
Need.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. Hey, that's
It's medicine for me.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs does classify sex as a need.
Right. It's definitely a need.
I've had my clients tell me, you perform better when you take a couple days off. Did you get out of town this weekend? Like, they know. They know when I'm in a better place. You know? Because it's just, if I don't have sex, I'm not functioning properly. I don't know where, like I said, I can't get to the root of it. I'm just telling you, this is who I am and this is how it is. And you have to, at this point in my life, you got to accept it or we can't be together.
Right.
So now now you were going, I hope do you still have your train of thought for you?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, so I just wanted to call attention to that now, please.
This is all truth here. I noticed that my lack of connection wasn't just with the person I was trying to be with.
Okay.
It goes across the board. It's an inability to trust across the board in any professional relationships. You know what I mean? Because I'm always expecting the worst. I'm expecting you to do what you could do, not what you will do.
That's good right there. Stop right there.
What you got?
Expecting. That's deep though.
It is. I'm expecting you to do I'm expecting you to be who you are. So that's where the block comes from. That way, when you show me who you are, and you do show up, because you will show up. I saw it coming, and I'm not hurt.
Some men will see this as like man bashing, but they gotta realize
it is what it is.
They put us in this place,
and to an extent, we put ourselves in that place.
Yeah.
But you don't see it. If you have your guard down, you don't see this person violating you. If they've went through all of this, and that's why I don't like the fuckboy. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't like the fuckboys because you come into the situation with all your damage and all your baggage and all your trauma, and you want to ruin good women, who are out here trying to find something for themselves. You come here with all of this, and you tell them you want a relationship and you want to connect, and so they're trying to do that with you.
And you're on some different shit.
But and I had just revisited an article I wrote. I posted it in the Hangout saying no to the unnecessary, dealing with your dating woes. And one of the things that because I functioned like that for a long time. After my divorce, I wasn't in a place where I really wanted a long-term relationship, but I needed the dick. I mean, I wanted the companionship, the sex and all of that. So I did engage in a string of no strings attached, friend with benefits relationships. And one thing that I discovered is that almost damn near every single one of those men wanted a connection.
Every one of them.
It
is just not true.
Did they want a connection because you didn't want one?
Nope.
Because I found when I got divorced, I was just like, I'm going to fuck you and then I'm never going to call you again. And I verbalized that. And it seemed like the more I verbalized that, those were the dudes was like, but why, baby? I really loving you and want to be with you and want to connect
they like
with
women
you.
that fall back. They don't like women that chase them.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, I think it's layers to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think when there's layers when you've been in that, like I'm not the one that I don't really jump around. I know I kind of hate that I do this, but I tend to get one and I'll be off and on with that person for like years, right? And
off and on.
Yeah, I'll have like an off and on
not
FWB.
Really on, not really off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have an FWB type situation for 3-4 years.
Oh, wow. Keeping them around like that?
But that's a relationship.
That's what I'm thinking.
Now, whether you want to call it that or not,
that sounds like a relationship.
Right, but for me, I just, the idea is, especially with this being Atlanta and the, sexually transmitted, I just don't like to be around I just do not like grabbing random people.
I don't either, but there's a certain level of emotional commitment that comes with that friends with benefits with no title.
Exactly.
Because you're going back and forth.
We're going back, and that's
way,
exactly what's been happening.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of times, and most of the time, I ain't gonna lie, I'm the one, I walk away from every single one and they always come back. They always, you ready? Come on. And so that it does build. So they do want these connections, but what I'm finding is that lots of time they're not able to give it.
They got their blocks too.
Because they're blocked again, because remember now, we're two sides of the opposite, we're just different sides of the opposite sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So he's dealing with his trauma. We're dealing with our trauma.
Right.
And his trauma, the way he deals with it manifests in one way. Men often disconnect. They're not going to, and I've even observed in one particular one, and I know you know what I'm talking about, one particular one, because of his experiences, I know that inwardly, he doesn't feel like he can be that kind of man. He doesn't feel like he can be a man because he was violated.
Wow.
And so he can't, but lots of men feel like they can't be a man. And even in our culture, not just black, I'm talking about society, there's this expectation that the man told everything. And that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And we have to really lift some of that weight off. It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. And I don't think that it's necessary. I really don't think it's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because even when I think about, I didn't see this model example, this really modeled with my parents, but I remember growing up in the 70s and the images I saw of couples, when I see my friends, I saw mom and dad loving on each other, and I saw them supporting each other,
right? And
I saw them openly admitting that how much they needed each other. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
The definition of manhood was different then. It was not uncommon to see a man in something looking feminine, and that didn't change his masculinity, right, at all. You see Prince can wear some heels and
you get all the women. All the
women.
Everybody want them.
All the
women
women
out of his heels.
With his little booty out. What?
They want them.
Right. So, so there's a lot that's going on. And so in trying to understand that, it's like, okay, so now that we understand that there are problems that are affecting us in our relationships that really do generate from outside.
Yeah.
And we have to find a way to cope with it. And and I think the way to cope with it is going to be having the conversation. And in order to have the conversation, I know for me, I don't know, because there's an intersection between bipolar and trauma. Lots of times they say they look very much alike. And I think for me, it's complex PTSD. So I think a lot of it is trauma. So for me, I don't want to have a conversation with somebody about that. And they're going to be like, well, marginalizing me. You know what I'm saying? Well, who wants to be vulnerable with somebody that they know or they feel is going to throw something in their face?
Yeah.
And we do.
That's what we do. That's what Maad usually. By the time we get into this point of understanding, we're frustrated. And that comes out in the conversation.
Hit 'em with the 1-2.
Right. Yeah. This is your enemy instead of your partner.
Right.
So now you're going at this conversation with
totally
an opponent instead of your teammate.
Right.
Yeah.
Which changes the whole way the conversation flows.
Right. And I think that we do that on both sides as well.
Oh,
but I think
definitely.
that, we do on both sides. But I mean, I think that women, because I know that's a specific fear that men bring up about things that they divulge coming back to them in that way.
And when I know personally, when I'm angry, I'm not a fair fighter. Like it could go. I throw them bad. So
I need
to work on that. Yeah.
You have plans to work on it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
That's real.
It is real.
That is real.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
I really do.
Yeah. Because it's about being in touch, right? With
Definitely.
yourself enough to be able to say that.
Yep.
And so would you say, and I'm going to ask you that now, so because you say this, does that mean your husband is accepting of it now and with understanding that it's something that you work on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's key.
Yeah. That's like big on his part. You know what I'm saying? But I had to recognize it. I didn't recognize it for a long time. And once I did, I had to evaluate myself, and it's a work in progress though. It's a work in progress because it's been so long. I always fought like that. So it's a work in progress.
Right. It is. And I can dig it because that's what I feel. It's one of the reasons why I get told that I overthink. I think a lot, but I think deeply.
Yeah.
Because I have a different perspective. I wish we didn't have to cut this short, but you know what that means. Tune in next week to hear the rest of the conversation. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed our show. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. at officialdfd.com. Follow us on social media at officialdfd. Your dynamic, your dialogue. Come get some.